Hello and welcome to EWTN News in Depth. An important development this week as our nation continues to navigate the post-Roe world, pushing abortion regulations to the states. Last weekend, Wyoming became the first state in the country to explicitly outlaw abortion pills after the governor acted on 2 abortion-related bills. Medical abortions account for more than half of all abortions in America. Republican Governor Mark Gordon signed the abortion pill ban on March 17th, making it illegal to prescribe, dispense, distribute, sell, or use any drug for the purpose of performing an abortion. Violation of the law is punishable by $9,000 fine or 6 months in jail. Pregnant women are exempt from being prosecuted. The law takes effect July 1st if there's no court intervention. The second bill, known as the Life is a Human Right Act, is a more sweeping piece of legislation that bans abortion under most circumstances. It does have exceptions, including rape, incest, or when the woman's life is in danger. That law, which took effect last Sunday, is now temporarily blocked after an abortion rights group immediately filed a challenge. All of this comes as a federal judge in Texas considers a case that could ban abortion pills nationwide. The Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine is one of the 4 pro-life medical groups challenging the Food and Drug Administration's approval of mifepristone. It's the first of 2 pills used in medical abortions.
The impact that this chemical abortion procedure has on a woman's body is generally it's the starving of the food needed through blocking progesterone for your unborn child. And then the second drug is what forcibly expels the baby from your uterus.
The safety of chemical abortions is at the heart of the lawsuit seeking to suspend the availability of abortion pills. The lawsuit alleges that the FDA ignored its own research and testing standards when approving the drug. Justice Department lawyers representing the FDA strongly deny the plaintiff's claim that the drug is unsafe and had not been properly vetted, saying it went through rigorous scientific testing before it was approved more than 20 years ago. Lawyers for the drug company which makes the abortion pill, Danco, also argued on behalf of the FDA in court. There's a lot happening with the Texas case and with the recent laws passed and challenged in Wyoming. Dr. Joseph Meany, president of the National Catholic Bioethics Center, and Heather Hacker, a former Texas Assistant Solicitor General, join me now to give us a better understanding of what these laws mean for the right to life in America. Thank you both for joining us. Dr. Meany, let's start with you. Can you explain the science behind the ethics of abortion pills? We're talking about ending a human life between conception and about 10 to 12 weeks. What's the framework for considering this issue?
So, the main framework, of course, is that direct abortion is never acceptable from an ethical perspective, certainly from a Catholic natural law perspective. But, this issue even goes further. And I think that what is being challenged in the court here is the basic ethical principle of informed consent, that one cannot provide drugs without providing proper safeguards and proper informed consent. And that is actually what is being challenged in the court case.
And when you're talking about proper informed consent, can you give me a little better understanding of what that means?
So essentially, as a medical principle, it is that patients need to know all the risks and possible benefits and side effects, and to have as many safeguards put into place so that their lives are not unduly put in danger. And what has been alleged here is that the FDA fast-tracked the approval and that they've taken away so many safeguards that now individuals who are taking these abortion pills are not getting proper informed consent or proper safeguards.
And proper care. We'll talk about that in a second. Heather, you've argued and followed this issue closely in courts around the country. Why is the Wyoming legislative ban on abortion pills important when more than a dozen states cover them in broad laws that prohibit all forms of abortion?
Well, the state of Wyoming actually had a trigger law that was supposed to ban abortion if Roe v. Wade were overturned, as it was in the Dobbs case last summer. But that law has been enjoined. So as of right now, abortion is legal in Wyoming. And so this was an effort by the legislature to restrict abortion, notwithstanding that trigger ban being enjoined.
And what is the future of this? Is this something that's held up in courts right now?
So yes, just a couple days ago, a Wyoming state court judge entered a temporary restraining order against the law. Now, the law had not gone into effect yet. It was effective, as you mentioned, in July of this year. And so there's still some time left before the law would go into effect for that legal wrangling. So the next step in the process would be for that same state court judge to have a hearing on a preliminary injunction motion. But as of right now, there is an order preventing that law from being effective.
And so they'll have to fight it out in the courts. Dr. Meany, back to you. When can we find background for this issue in church teaching? Where can we find that? What forms our understanding of human life that makes this protection so important?
Yeah, I think St. John Paul II said it the best in his wonderful encyclical letter, Evangelium Vitae, where he basically talked about a culture of life and a culture of death and the incredible dignity of the human person, and we can never directly kill an innocent human being. And I think what's very important to see whenever the issue of abortion comes up is that there are loving solutions that do not involve killing. And there's really a terrible misunderstanding, I think, of the ethics and the dignity of the human person that think that we can sacrifice some individuals in order to help others. So I think that's the key point. And of course, going back, to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith has a wonderful declaration on procured abortion. But I mean, the church's teaching really goes back to the very first centuries, which is a beautiful thing to see all this continuity about standing up for life and the importance of human life.
Absolutely. Now, Heather, did the Supreme Court address this issue at all in its ruling in the Dobbs case when it overturned the right to abortion created by Roe and Casey? Is this a medical abortion issue something that comes up there?
No, it was mainly focused on whether or not the U.S. Constitution protects a right to abortion. And the answer to that question was no. So that necessarily means that states can regulate abortion as they see fit. The court only said that any state law that regulates abortion would be subject to rational basis review, which is the lowest standard of review and is very deferential to the state typically. So what that means is that states are now free to regulate abortion as they want. And so Wyoming did that, but now the question shifts to state courts to determine if under state law or the state constitution, whether restrictions on abortion comport with those legal requirements. So it's shifted from federal court to state court now.
Right. And so then what's the standard? Before under Casey, we had a 22-week standard or a viability standard. How has that changed? And how are courts at the state level supposed to apply the difference between these moments of the pregnancy?
So the standard now is basically whatever passes rational basis review. The state can prohibit abortion, all abortion. Some states do, and other states allow abortion up to 40 weeks. So that's all up to the states now, and the federal courts, at least the Supreme Court determined that the federal Constitution does not speak to that.
That's great. Dr. Meany, before I go to Heather on the legal implications of this, why is it critical that these laws not be used to persecute women?
Yeah, I think it's so important to see that in many, many cases, abortion is actually something that is being forced on the mother, that she doesn't want to go through with the abortion, but there's a huge amount of pressure being brought upon her. And so it's very important, I think, to realize that she can often be a victim as well, and that the law should be really going after the perpetrators, those who are profiting from the abortions, those who are pushing the abortions, rather than those who are the victims of abortion.
Heather, the criminal implications and the penalties from the Wyoming law are serious. Are these different from the $10,000 fines the initial Texas laws imposed last year?
So if you're mentioning the Texas heartbeat law, those would be different. The Texas heartbeat law imposed civil penalties rather than criminal penalties, but Texas does prohibit abortion now, and it is a criminal prohibition. And several other states also do that as well. So at least in Texas, we still have the heartbeat law, which imposes civil penalties, and then we also have a criminal prohibition on abortion. And those laws both have exceptions.
So we're looking at exceptions, but at the same time, criminal penalties for the involvement in abortion. Heather, what can we expect as legislatures pass new laws and courts across the country are embroiled in more legal action? Will action from Congress or the Supreme Court make a difference, or are we just going to have to battle this out state by state?
So I think it will be a battle state by state. As I mentioned, the main battleground for these questions as to whether states can restrict or regulate abortion and how far they can go, the forum for that has now shifted mainly to state courts. And so there are states that are considering now, the state Supreme Courts are considering whether or not a state, the state constitution protects a right to abortion. Now, it's an interesting question because many states that had previously found a state right to abortion based that reasoning in significant part on the reasoning that the Supreme Court had applied in Roe and Casey in finding a right to abortion under the federal Constitution. So some of those states, if there are challenges in those states, the court will have to sort of go back to the drawing board in terms of locating where in the state constitution there is such a right to abortion. And so there are state courts that are looking at that question right now.
Well, we'll be looking at the state courts, the legislatures, and of course, with our eyes on 2024. Thank you so much, Heather. Dr. Meany, stay with us. We've got one more issue that we want to discuss with you.